and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new, I want to say welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. My name is Amber Stewart, and I am the owner of the Stew Project, where I help individuals maximize their living potential by simply taking emphasis on wellness. More specifically, I help individuals suffering from chronic stress, anxiety, or depression, or other chronic health conditions, and I help them get past the blocks that are holding them back from living the life of their dreams in a body that they love. Now, I started doing something a little different just to switch things up. I turned my YouTube channel, or my YouTube Health Coach and Life Coach PSAs, into a podcast. And what I am doing now is starting to interview other experts in the health and wellness field to discuss various topics on mental health, wellness, and all the above. Now, today we have a very special guest, somebody that honestly inspired me on my health and wellness journey, even my career as far as group training. A wonderful yogi that is based in the Atlanta, Georgia area by the name of Ari Loggins. Today we're going to be talking to her about yoga and mental health, because one, our mental health is very important, and yoga is often underutilized. That can help relieve a lot of stress and improve our mental health. And just a couple of things that I wanted to bring up about yoga. So yoga's incorporation of meditation and breathing can help improve a person's mental well-being. Regular yoga practice creates mental clarity and calmness, increases body awareness, relieves chronic stress patterns, relaxes the mind, centers attention, and sharpens concentration. And research also shows that yoga and meditation may improve executive functions such as reasoning, decision-making, memory, learning, reaction time, and etc. Now, we're going to take a different spin on yoga today because Ari, or Ari as I love to call her, she works with children in the yoga field. And so one thing that I feel is important is how the traumas or the way that parents deal with their stress affects their children. And one thing I wanted to share with you before I bring her on is that in one very fascinating study, research subjected mice to shock while exposing them to a particular scent. And eventually the mice became afraid when exposed to the scent without any shocks occurring. But that's not the interesting part. What happened was that when the researchers then exposed the offspring of the rodents to the same scent, and although the offspring never had been conditioned by the shock, they displayed a marked fear response to the scent. And in the realm of human studies, research on children who were conceived during a harsh wartime famine in the Netherlands in the 1940s revealed that they had an increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, and other serious health conditions, possibly because of epigenetic alterations to genes involved in these diseases. So from these studies, we could conclude that your genes are quite literally carrying epigenetic propensities that are related to your ancestors' experiences. And so today we're going to talk to Ari about how yoga can help reduce these issues from occurring in our family. So let's take it away. And all right. Welcome.
Yay.
All right. So today at the Stew Project, we have the wonderful yogi herself, Ari Loggins. I'm just going to call her Ari because I don't know who Ari is, but in my heart, she's Ari. So, Ari, before we get started, I just want to say that you have made a tremendous impact on me as far as one, yoga, and then just as far as my group fitness, exercise, like career path. So just thank you.
I love that. Thank you.
The inspiration, and thank you for joining me. Now, I also talk about, before we even get into talking about yoga and mental health and how it impacts the kids, I'm also really big into spirituality and following your divine path. And so I would love for you to just share your story about yoga and how you were like this super yogi, and then it turned into this wonderful, thriving little yogi's business. So please.
So let's see if I can find a short version of the story. I started in Pilates, and that was kind of like my first love. And then when I started doing yoga, I felt like there was a different, of course, a different connection with yoga. I don't know. I needed to break away from some, just former patterns. I needed to break away from just some of the things that I was doing. I would say just mentally, like positive self-talk. I wanted to get more involved in just self-awareness for myself. And then I had kids. And when the first one came along, I had in my mind these fabulous dreams of being this stay-at-home mom and having homeschooling and doing all these fun things. And I was like, well, how can I still continue to do yoga and to live my life and to, have this great practice and fitness business now with this little kid? And so that's where the Little Yogis came about in a nutshell.
That's amazing. And so one thing that I love, I know you didn't share it, but I hope you don't mind if I share it. But
No.
I remember during our friendship, you didn't have kids and you were single, and you were like, you know what, maybe it's just not in the cards for me to have kids, but all of your siblings had kids. And so you're the oldest, right?
No, I'm actually the oddball, the middle child.
Okay. So yeah, you were like the middle child and had no kids. And so then turn of events happened and you had your girls. And I thought this was like totally perfect because you were just like, oh, I just want to have girls. And so you had not one but two girls, and then they're like sisters, and they look as they're like thick as thieves. And so I feel like you got exactly what you wanted out of life. And granted, it wasn't how you thought of it.
It never is. It really never is how we think things are going to flow. But, it's funny you say that because as I was driving today and just contemplating, just about life, I just felt really grateful. I just felt like so much gratitude in that a lot of things, I can't say nothing. A lot of things in my life, especially recently, has not gone as planned. Yes. But there's so many things that are so great and so right through the detour of all of that came about that I never would have come to if I didn't take those little dips and turns. And so I feel like it's all the master plan,
Yes, I love that. It's all in the master plan. So can you now tell us about the impact on little yogis? Because I know that yoga has so many benefits for our mental health. And in this day and age, like, I feel like it's really important for kids to learn how to regulate their emotions, because especially with social media and the chronic stress and anxiety, like, it's really impacting our kids. And I know the suicide rates are going up, and just anxiety and depression in general is taking a big impact. And I think we're dealing with a mental health crisis. And so one of the things that I believe is, like, it's so important that parents start to incorporate mental health practices, and not only mental health, but mind-body awareness, and learn how to for kids to learn to regulate their emotions. And I think yoga is important in instilling that in our kids. And the fact that you created a business around that actually helps you live your ideal life is so amazing. Can you just tell us a little bit about, like, how the yoga is impacting not only the kids that you teach, but the parents as well?
So that is, so life is funny. So to give you kind of a quick analogy, when I first got into yoga, I actually taught mommy and me in prenatal yoga, not having kids and not have ever been pregnant. And until I became pregnant, I realized that even going by textbook, certifications and kind of learning, that a lot of that stuff, I was like, oh, and I was in great shape, my first child. But a lot of the stuff that we learned, I was like, we definitely need to modify some of this, or just, kind of like really dig deep in what feels good in our bodies, and learn to listen to that. And so I would say during COVID and after opening my studio, I don't know if I ever actually experienced anxiety, like true to form. Like I've felt nervous about things. I even feel like I might have had some minor panic attacks in my life, but like an ongoing kind of chronic, like, anxiety feelings, I don't know that I'd ever experienced it up until that point. And so I bring up the fact that here I was teaching a lot about these coping skills and trying to help parents with how to help their children. And until you've actually experienced like what parenting, even the anxieties of wanting to make sure that you are giving your child what you need, nonetheless, feeling that they are suffering, I feel like even that is a very delicate place to navigate.
Yes.
And it's very relative. And so while there are things that I think across the board that would work, I heard a little girl the other day, she said, "Miss Ari, I just get so angry." And I was just like, we're gonna have to figure it out. She was like, "I know, but the breathing is not helping." And I was just thinking to myself, like, that's our go-to, like, it's like almost like a magnet. Like, it was like talking about kale like 3 years ago. It's like, just take deep breaths. That's the first thing we go to, as if that is the
magic cures,
the magic
like it's not working.
Cure of emotional regulating. And yeah, it's like, I don't think they even know like what the breaths are supposed to do. Like, sometimes we're like, maybe I don't even know how to breathe, like I'm breathing, but I don't even know if I'm breathing correctly. And then there's some anxieties behind thinking you're on the outside of some secret that everybody else knows. So needless to say, there are true informed like benefits of doing yoga, meditating, but I think the biggest benefit is just becoming more aware, knowing like now knowing what exactly I can recall moments in my life, even recently, where you're debilitated by anxiety, and like nothing is making your body move. Your mind is not it's on this like a one track, and you can't get in, and it's on a train that is going so fast, and you don't know where you can get off. You don't see an end to this. You don't know how to get off. You don't know how to slow it down, and
nothing works.
Mm-hmm. And you feel, I've felt it take over my body physically, and like turn the shaking into nauseousness, to the point where you're like, my day is done. It's been taken by anxieties. And I think above anything for me, I talk about anxieties like a cliff. Like, how can we now stop you from getting to the top of the cliff? Because I always feel like once I get to the top of the cliff, it's very hard for me to come down off of the cliff.
Because now all you're thinking about is falling.
Yeah, that's it. And so me personally, I feel like it's almost like a nightmare. You almost have to go back to sleep and see it through. Mm-hmm. And once you get to see it through, you're like, this wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I'm okay. And then just doing an inventory check too. Sometimes I sit and I do that with my students. I'm like, let's talk about like how okay you are, and start from there. Like the things that are okay, the things that are going right. And it's not to redirect them as if the anxiety or fear or doubt doesn't exist. It's sometimes, overcoming what is wrong with what is going right. So
but I think it's also Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No. So just to come back to that, I do feel like, hang on, this is me emotionally regulating that I don't have time to myself. Hang on one second.
Okay.
All right, my friends, I'm in a meeting. I don't want you to come back to this door, my loves. Do you understand? Or is it going to be bedtime? Sorry. So
It's okay.
I try to be stern with my kids. They joke, my siblings especially, and say I do a lot of gentle parenting, but I think it's not gentle parenting for me. It's actually because I'm just a sensitive and gentle person. So
Yes. Yes. Well, it works for you, so it's good. And I mean, sometimes, like, you know your kids, and so you know what works for you and works for them. And honestly, when it comes to like parenting, sometimes like being harsh and stern to kids and yelling, like I feel like that's what caused my anxiety. And until I started um, really learning and going to school for anxiety and depression, I understand it. That's when I realized, like, oh crap, like this is stuff that I've been like dealing with. And like, just like you during COVID and relocating and stuff, like I've had really full on anxiety really debilitate my body to where it's like affecting my eating, had my stomach in literal knots. And I'm thinking like I'm having digestion issues, but all of it is just the things in my head. And
yeah.
one thing I want to touch on that I think is important for you is what you do with the kids is like you, instead of trying to deter them from what they're feeling, it's like, okay, let's focus on it and let's just let you know that it's okay. It's okay to
Absolutely.
feel these things, but let's just work through them because it's okay to feel them, but it's not okay to stay in those
Stay
feelings.
in that place. I agree, because anger
Yes.
is very real, and it's like to tell someone to not, that you're not allowed to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think that and as children, I think that that's even worse, or to remove their choice, to remove
Mm-hmm.
those choices to feel, or even worse, them not feeling seen or heard, and I
Yes.
think that acknowledging them, like I I have lots of fun shirts and sayings and things, but a lot of people love your feelings are valid. Like they are. And I'm a big
Yes.
feelings girl. Like I'm
Yes.
always in big feelings, whether it's excitement, whether it's happiness, whether it's sadness. And I feel
Yes.
like just that alone
Mm-hmm.
makes a huge difference when children have a voice, and they're
Yeah.
allowed to use it, and they are allowed to tell what's on their mind, and sometimes it could be something as simple as hunger
Yeah.
or tiredness,
Yeah, that's so
exhaustion.
true. Yes, because like especially because I know one thing that I had growing up was like, stop crying, I give you something to cry about.
Hmm.
And it's like, no, it's like, yes, your feelings are hurt and it's okay. And oftentimes we don't like when you're parents, I don't have kids, but I've done a lot of babysitting and stuff. And so one thing that I've learned is that like, well, even me when I was growing up, is like when you invalidate kids' feelings or tell them like that their feelings don't matter, it affects them growing up. And so
Oh,
especially like
absolutely.
sadness and anger, they will grow up and not learn to accept those aspects of them. And so it'll either make them become unemotional or narcissistic or just even codependent or people pleasing,
Yeah.
because it's like, well, I can't feel sadness, so I will turn that sadness into anger. Well, I can't feel anger now, so I'm just going to turn that into frustration and take it out on other people and be passive aggressive and things like that. And so I feel like you teaching kids about yoga and the mind body connection and helping them understand how they're feeling, how it affects their body, and that
And
it's
how to
okay.
communicate it. I think that's a big thing
Yes.
too. It's like, when my 3-year-old says, "Mommy, I'm nervous," or "There's a lot of people in here, I'm kind of overwhelmed," or it's like
Mm,
sometimes I'm like, is she playing me? Like, did she just hear some conversations and she is getting me? She's getting out of going to class, she's getting out of going to do these more structured activities because she just wants to
yes.
like sit around, or does she really feel these things? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I feel like our parents And I never want, and I always say this, I don't know if this is the overachiever in me, but I'm like, I never want to be like, gone from this world. And my children said, my mom just did the best that she could, like
Mm,
I feel like our parents really did do the best that they could, but there wasn't many names to things that they were feeling to teach us, and if there were, they didn't really have the access to know what, like, depression or anxiety, or even like bigger things like bipolar disorder, or,
yeah,
severe mood changes, or manic behavior, or,
or
and I look at,
schizophrenia. Yeah,
yeah, and to be like, I need to reach out to someone to get my children help because I don't know, or even if it's not, even if it's like acute, like something like that is passing, but it's still like, I feel like a lot of people, especially in our generation, they passed, but they're still wavering on that space where maybe if they had a little assistance, that, and this is why we feel like there is a mental health crisis going on right now, because I think because we're more aware, these things were probably always going on. I also
yeah,
do feel like diet is huge, so I do talk to my parents a lot about, what the kids are eating, because that's always going to affect their mood, how much activity they're getting throughout the day,
hmm,
how much sleep they're getting, how much, the emphasis we put on screen time, I think is kind of, I don't know, silly. I think
yeah,
that we had access to Game Boys, to, all these virtual things, to, I look back, and my siblings had video games, had game systems, had TVs in every room. There was no craziness like, oh, we have to do screen time. There was no need for
yes,
it, And
yes,
so it's like, I don't even think it's the screen time. I think it's the importance we've put on it. Like, oh, now I
yes,
have to regulate this. Another thing for kids to be shut down, to not have a voice, to not have a, maybe they, anyways, I can go spiral off into so many things that affect their mental health. But I do feel like, above anything, it is, yes, the love that they feel. It is being seen. If they're more, I was a more sensitive child. So when I would cry, or would, be upset, or just be affected by the mood sometimes of the room, or what's going on with your siblings, sometimes those little things, I was very empathetic, and so it's like, I
yes.
feel like um, our parents, I don't know if they knew how to see us, because they were taught, children are to be, what is the saying?
Seen but
Children,
not heard.
yes, and so it's just like, so looking back, I'm like, these were the things that they were taught.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I know my parents, they were, my mom had my oldest brother at 17, and I think she was like 25 when I was born. So when I was thinking what I was going through in my 20s, like, I have to give my mom props, because, like, I was not worried about kids in my
Mm-mm.
20s. Like, I was living my life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
I
agree.
really
And
did a lot.
I often think about that, like what my parents were like when they were children, what they experienced, knowing the bits and pieces I know about their parents, or the parents that I have met, like, and I imagine my mom, like, as this child, and it sometimes does, it makes me sad, it makes me sad
Yeah.
for her. It makes me want to be closer to her, even when I don't understand some of the choices she's made. I'm like, maybe it's not for me to understand, because I didn't grow up
Mhm.
in with her life, and so it's just like, all I know is that she's my mom, and I think, I know for a fact that she loves us. So it's just like, like I said, they tried their best, but I do think that they are still on this, in this, like, kind of like wild space of what, what can really be called a mental health issue or not.
Yeah.
So, or
But
like,
yeah.
oh, kind of a get over it kind of attitude, and that's okay. I just don't think it really works that way. I think we were put here to think intellectually and use our minds to the greatest ability. That's why we have them. That's why we're gifted with metaphors and, analogies, and the space to make meanings. And so it's just
Yes.
like, with all of that power, we have to tackle mental health, because if it's out of whack, we aren't fulfilling our purposes here.
Yeah. And what is it? It
So,
just makes life so much harder when you don't have your mental health. Like, even when your diet is not in order. Because I know, moving back to Mississippi and eating that comfort food and stuff, like, my energy came down, my attention span, like my motivation, like I was moodier, my skin got oilier, so my self-esteem went down.
yes.
Like, it just throws everything off. And then, like, it's hard to even navigate life with clarity under
Yeah.
those circumstances. And so it just, you really need everything. You need the mental health and the diet, the physical activity, because, like, your emotions, they get buried in your body. And so if you don't move, you're just storing, especially during like stressful or traumatic or hard times. Like, that's the most when you need to move. And most people, they don't want to go to the gym. They don't
Yeah.
want to like lift weights and stuff. And
That's
so
the
why,
first thing to go. That's the first thing to
yes,
go.
yes. And that's why I think yoga is like the perfect go-to, because it's fluid and
Yeah.
it's not that much movement to it, but it's just enough to get you going. And so it helps you accept your emotions in your body. Because even when you're doing like standing in warrior pose for a minute or 30 seconds, you're like, okay, this is uncomfortable. But you learn to sit in that uncomfortableness and be like, okay, it's uncomfortable, but I can handle it. And then you take a breath, and then it's like, I can handle this.
Yeah.
And so,
And to touch on that, like, I feel like that is the biggest misconception about yoga that people miss out on, because, cliche as it sounds, yoga is the union. And when you think about a union between anything, it's like you're marrying your mind and your body. You're marrying to your health. You're marrying to your confidence. When you talk about self-esteem, I feel like once the esteem is out the window, everything goes. But yoga can give you that back. When you start to feel the strength within your body, your mind begins to think in the same manner. It's like what you do is what you become, what you say is what you become.
yes.
And so it's just like, I feel like even if it's like a 5-minute practice, just that alone will begin to strengthen your mind, because you're like, I've now practiced 5 minutes Monday through Friday for 5 days a week. Consistency bridges discipline, bridges confidence, bridges a more mentally sound person. And so it's just like, I try to teach the kids, especially like when you're creating your own discipline and your own practice, this is for you. Like, we show up for school, and I think that they separate discipline and life lessons from what you're really truly getting from your everyday routine of waking up, getting ready for school, getting that responsibility of just self-care alone, of taking care of yourself. I feel like sometimes we're missing the point of these routines. And above anything else, I feel like that is what's really helping the kids connect to their mental health within their yoga practice. They're seeing, oh, even I have he has to be 5, and we taught yoga to his sisters last year, and now he's at the studio and he comes every day. And I kid you not, he's also giving me a run for my money. He has some, just some fidgeting issues and some sometimes I don't want to say anger, because it doesn't seem like anger. Sometimes it seems like typical boy behavior, but I also don't want to say that too, because I feel like that is a conditioning that we've also been under. Yeah. So it's like, but needless to say, so we have dealt with really trying to figure out what's going to help reach him. And every day we do what we call a mindful meditation for, like, after they get right out of school, they come into the studio, before they do anything else, they get prepared for mindful meditation. I kid you not, if we skip a beat and forget or we're late, he is doing legs up the wall, and he is looking at us like, where's my mindful meditation? You know, like, this is the best part of my day. And it
I
is
need my me
literally,
time.
yes, and it is literally just a moment where all the kids are, it's like a moment of silence. Like, they all just come, we call it the purple room. They all come into the purple room and they just lay down, and they're connecting with themselves. They're connecting with their breath. They're connecting with each other. You know, even the studio, the energy in the studio with the teachers, it's all of that union together that is now allowing them to see and become more aware of their mental health. And I think it's a beautiful thing to turn to yoga. I think that's the truest thing that has stayed most consistent in my life as I've experienced just, you know, grief and loss and change. You
Yeah,
know, it's like,
because change isn't always fun.
it's never fun, like, never. But you know, I often tell myself, I imagine like a tree growing, and I think to myself, there is something that's going to be beautiful from this change, you know, this disruption that has to happen, this uncomfortable, this push through, all these things for this tree to grow. And so I look at, you know, any changes in my life the same way. I'm like, look, the outcome will be great.
Oh, I love that. Like change is like a tree. It's gonna grow. It's gonna be beautiful.
Mhm.
Yay! All right. So I don't want to keep you on too long, but I know you're located in the Georgia area. So if you can just let us know where your locations, because you have multiple locations, and if kids and if parents are interested in getting involved in your business and having their kids become little yogis, can you let them know how they can do so?
Yeah, so we have several websites. I've personally built them myself. But you can
That.
go to yes, you can go to thelittleyogis.com. That's Little, yogis YOGIS.com. And or you can call 678-237-9268. The main location is in Roswell, Georgia. It's 11050 Crabapple Road. You can almost always find me there. We've now added on some more family yoga classes because I definitely think
Yay.
it's important for, you know, parents to just be vulnerable with their kids and unashamed from kid behavior.
Mhm.
And we have adult classes and kids classes as well separately. Um, and yeah, just come stop by anytime, even if it's just to inquire and to see. I still do private lessons as well. And I always say it's good to start privately, especially if you're uh, ironically having any kind of anxieties about doing yoga, because you'll
Yes.
get to that other side before you start practicing with other people. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ari, for joining me. It has been such a pleasure.
yay,
And
thank you for having me.
yay, and you have a wonderful day. And if anybody's interested, please go visit her at Little Yogis in Roswell and see your life and your kids' life change for the better.
Yes, I truly do feel like we are, when I look at my kids, changing generation. Like, my kids are, I would hope, very different from some of the approaches. Maybe not all, because I come from my parents, but a lot of the approaches that I felt like growing up that, you know, that changed me for the worse. I'm trying to do better. And so I
Mhm.
hope that we are definitely changing generations. So
Yes, and ultimately that's what every parent wants, and your business and the Little Yogis helps people do that. So thank you.
thank you so much.
All right.